Good evening and welcome. It is Wednesday, June 22nd, and this is a business session meeting of the Board of Education. We are beginning our meeting in the Shanahan Middle School multi-purpose room because we have a great turnout for achievement and extracurricular and academic achievement awards for a number of students. It's great to see them and their families here this evening. After this presentation, we will recess quickly to move back to our regular board meeting for the rest of the agenda. So with that, as a call to order the meeting, Mr. Curry, can you please call the roll?
Larson absent. Ms. Fiesel?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mrs. Thatcher?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here. Mr. Barnes regretfully had missed the meeting this evening because he had a business meeting scheduled on top of this and he has to be out of state. So with that, we'll stand and have a pledge of allegiance, and right after that, we'll Sarah Latsky, middle school member with the national anthem. So please join in. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We need a motion to approve the agenda. We have one change, which is the language for us to go into executive session to end the meeting. So with that change, which was distributed, do a motion, please, to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And a second. Any discussion on the agenda? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mrs. Thatcher?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, agenda passes 4-0. The next item is the board preference report. And of course, thank you for being here, students and parents, and congratulations to all you young people. Very nice job. Thank you for sharing your talent. So with that, we will have our recognition of students for academic and extracurricular achievements.
Before we get started, I just want to point out that over to my left, your right, we have a very special Super Bowl commemorative football. That's from former Olentangy Brave Kenny Ananiki, who plays for the Denver Broncos and now has a Super Bowl ring. And every high school that the Super Bowl players attend, they get a commemorative football because Kenny used to play football at Olentangy. Olentangy. So if you want to take a look at that after the meeting, feel free to snap some pictures too. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It used to be when we would add students, we would just add a couple classrooms in a gymnasium, and that's what you're sitting in. This was a gymnasium and then a cafeteria at one time when we were all one building, K through 12. And we were like that until 1990, so we've seen a lot of changes since then. I haven't been down to this farm for a long time. But tonight, we want to recognize the students and staff members for their outstanding achievements in co-curricular, extracurricular, or athletic activities. In April, we were able to recognize more than 180 students, coaches, and advisors. And now that the spring sports and events have come to an end, we're happy to congratulate another group of students and staff. As I call each person's name, we ask that you come forward, receive your award, and pose for a photograph with our board president and our superintendent. These photographs can be displayed at graduations, and they will be delivered to you in the next couple of weeks. And I want to apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce your name. But first of all, we have a very special person to come up. It's just incredible that we have one of these, but it's for a perfect ACT score. And this is for our first recognition. We have actually 2 students who earned perfect scores on their ACT test. An average of less than 0.1% of students who take the ACT earn a perfect score. So we're going to call you up individually. First, from Liberty High School, we have Sneha Darba. From Orange High School, we have Devin Fogarty. Devin. Devin will have to give us all some tips on what's the secret. Great job, Devin. Next, in visual arts, our district is fortunate to have some very talented artists in our midst. The following students were recognized with OCC Art Honors. Lindsay Hopek. Is Lindsay here? And next we have Julia Jester. In the performing arts, the following student thespians were selected to perform at various state and international festivals this year. Jamie Shumalewski participated in She Kills the Monsters Young Adventurers Edition at the All-Ohio Thespian Festival. Jamie? And next we have Dominic Fleshman, who was an individual participant in the Duet Musical Theater and participated in the International Thespian Festival. Madison Warren received a superior rating at the Duet Musical Theater and participated in the International Thespian Festival. And Monica Williams received and participated in She Kills Monsters Young Adventurers Edition at the All-Ohio Thespian Festival. And finally, Orange High School's theater director Kathy Swain Abrams was named Theater Director of the Year by the Ohio chapter of the Educational Theater Association. Another area in which our high schools excel is journalism. Join me in congratulating the following student journalists who received superior ratings by the Ohio Scholastic Media Association. The board is pleased to honor Raylan Bishop, Madeline Brooks, Taylor Combs, Megan Graywood, and Sean Ewing. All Olentangy Middle Schools participate in the National Math Counts program, which is a B-style mathematics competition. The Hyatt's Math Counts team set a district record by placing 6th at this year's state competition. We are pleased to recognize the following members of the Hyatt's Math Counts team this evening. Liam Chen, Benui Davaretti, Hiroki Kamakura, and tonight's singer, Sarah Lasky. As part of the annual National History Day competition, students in the 6th through 12th grades conduct research on topics related to a theme and present their findings in historical papers, exhibits, documentaries, performances, and websites. This year, Berkshire Middle School students excelled in this competition by earning the National History Day State Championship and advancing to the national level of competition. Please congratulate the following Berkshire Middle School students who were state qualifiers. Emily Brace, Jacob Branninger, please congratulate the following Berkshire Middle School students who were state champions and national qualifiers. Taylor Horn, and Anish Inukuri. Next, we have the National History Bee. The National History Bee is an academic competition for elementary and middle school students that tests knowledge of a wide range of historical topics. 4 Olentangy students advanced through the regional competition to become National History Bee qualifiers. Congratulations to the following students. Andrew Fett Bologna, Mitchell List. Jeffrey Liu. Sahardaha Mehta. These next two students were National History Day state qualifiers and National History Bee qualifiers. Congratulations to Caden Pomeroy. And Nicholas Shonlev. The popular In the Know quiz program features high school students competing in a televised game show competition. Olentangy High School's In the Know team bested all comers to become this year's In the Know champions. We are excited to recognize the following students who were part of this championship team. Karen Arugo, I'm going to say this right, Agawa. Since this team won, I believe the high school got scholarships out of that. Isn't that correct? From the Ohio State University. That's pretty big. Bryce Piper. Hayden Toffner. Maybe they'll play Trivial Pursuit with us. And Luke Van Gorder. We now turn to recognize our phenomenal student athletes. The following students have received individual state level honors in their sport. The board congratulates these students. Kyle Brookshire, state track and field qualifier. Trevor Collins, All-Ohio Boys Track and Field. Kanan Cook, State Track and Field Qualifier. Chase Risa, First Team All-Ohio Baseball. Allison Wagenti, State Track and Field Qualifier. Griffin Hughes, First Team All-State Boys Lacrosse. Eric Niekamp, Second Team All-State Boys Lacrosse. Jordan Phelps, state tennis doubles qualifier. Adam Rieger, third team All-State Boys Lacrosse. Connor Ryan, first team All-State Boys Lacrosse. JT Schottmer, second team All-State Boys Lacrosse. Siobhan Charnesis, state track and field qualifier. Michael Trombetti, third team All-State Boys Lacrosse. Anna Watson, state champion pole vault. Jonathan Wiseman, second team All-State Boys Lacrosse. And Jonathan Zuravel, state tennis doubles qualifier. Our student athletes are led by fantastic coaches and mentors. Many have received team and coaching honors this year. From Olentangy High School, join me in congratulating, I think these are from all of the high schools actually. From our high schools, join me in congratulating Coach James Dingus and his Liberty High School girls track team. They were the OCC champions, and I remember when he was a student. Karen Kokaiser led the Olentangy High School boys volleyball team to a district championship and a regional runners-up title. And Coach Ryan Lucas's Olentangy High School boys baseball team won the OCC championship. They were district champions, and Ryan was also named OCC Capital Division Coach of the Year. On behalf of the entire board, I would once again like to congratulate all of the students, coaches, and advisors that we have recognized this evening. We are very proud of all of your accomplishments.
We just anybody who show up to the good flag. All right.
Okay, good. And you can go enjoy your evening while we have our board meeting down at the other end of the school.
Good evening. Again, good evening, everyone. I know we have a lot of important things to talk about here at the rest of our business meeting, but I have to be honest with you, you did just miss the best part of the meeting because we honored these students for academic and extracurricular excellence and some staff members who were coaches and other advisors, and it was very, very impressive. We talked about 2 students who earned perfect scores on the ACT on the way back, but as I thought through all of the things that kids were being honored for, I don't know that anything was more impressive than any one other award. Everyone just seemed to be more impressive than the last. So it's just a great, I appreciate you taking the time to do that as a Board of Education and honoring our students and staff. So, Huh. I pressed the button. Is it on? That's all right. Thank you. Oh, there it is. So, couple good things keep rolling in as we go through the remainder of the last academic year. Our 3rd grade reading guarantee, we currently have a 97% passage rate. That leaves us with actually 6 students still need to attain a passing score on one of our measures, which is 0.41% of our 3rd graders. The remaining 2.6% of our 3rd graders are either exempt due to being on an IEP or being an English language learner. So we're making progress. The students still have 2 more opportunities this summer to earn a passing score, so we're confident that our students and staff are working hard on that. Wanted to give you a quick hiring update. We started off the year needing 85 positions. We had 33 for growth, 45 for retirement, resignation, and another 7 for leave of absences. So far, we've hired 70, so we're at 82% complete. So you'll be getting, most of those hires will be completed by our July 7th meeting. So the staff principals are finishing up that. Most of our hiring is at the elementary level that's remaining. Mr. Meyer, would that be correct? It's accurate? Yeah. So I'm confident we'll have everybody. Hopefully we don't have any late resignations after July 10th. So principals are always very relieved to get that completed for the next school year. Couple things just came in here recently. OCC Capital Division Ralph Young All Sports Award was awarded to Olentangy High School. They, what that is a compilation of all of the athletic teams from over the course of the school year. Orange was 2nd in that division. They actually had more overall team champions than Olentangy, but were edged out there at the end. And then Liberty High School, for the 5th year in a row, was the OCC Central Division Ralph Young All Sports Award. So again, it's a compilation of all of the sports teams throughout all the years and their relative placement throughout the seasons. So we have quite a few discussion items. First, we're starting off with our TIF that Berkshire Township is bringing forward. We have Township Administrator Jeff George and developer Joe Simonello who will be here to present to you information on that. Thankfully, Mr. Fetty is here to relieve me with the 2nd reading of the CIP. So Jack's you've seen the revisions that we've now recommended based off of our discussion from the 1st reading of the CIP, so that is for approval tonight. Jack and Marty will be giving you a update on our ODE selective review update, which was the audit of our special education services, so that'll be an interesting update for you. Additionally, Jack, that's 3 in a row for Jack if you were counting, and Rob Sexton are going to give you an update on our district-wide digital conversion plan. So again, I'm very, I know you'll be interested in that. And then finally, Jack will be giving a report on key performance indicators, which is a different way of looking at all of our departments and measurement indicators across the board, expanding on our CIP. And then finally, Mr. Gordon will is back to, again, answer any remaining questions regarding the House Bill 264 energy project before you, because you have the resolution for approval tonight. So a couple other agenda items of note that are big purchases. The new ZLA Pro, which you heard a report on from our curriculum department, I think it was 3 meetings ago. And then the agenda item to approve the energy project. There's also a purchase of Performance Matters, which is our data dashboard assessment system. Rob and Jack will be talking about that a little bit in their digital conversion. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have. Very
Thank you,
good.
sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Kern, Treasurer's Report, if you would.
Yes, for this evening, we have 4 action items, the financials for May and appropriations to finish the year out for FY16 and appropriations for FY17. If you recall, back in the end of May, you did approve the general fund budget in its detail. These includes the general fund, but all the remaining funds appropriations as we start the next fiscal year have to be done prior to June 30th. So that's for the approval. As you know, we continually make appropriation adjustments throughout the year. So, and then we got donations to the district. This evening, I think the big winner was it Oak.
One of the elementary schools and all there.
Yes, Glen Oak.
Yeah.
For 122,000 plus for books, reading kits, sound system, and a smart board. The Rotary Foundation
That's PTO.
also gave $500 to each elementary and 1 middle school on the west side. And supplemental pay for Orange Athletic Boosters and American Mutual for high school scholarships. So we appreciate all, one more, building letters and signage over at Orange High
Yeah.
School for the class of 2016. Valued about $4,650. So we always appreciate all our outside groups and our support organizations and their support of the district. Any questions?
Thank you, Brian. Do we have any items for public participation for general comment?
Yes, we have 2 this evening for general comments. Tina?
I was hoping to go after the review of the special education, after the Cody Select Review update. I might have questions regarding that.
That's up to you as Davis. This is
I
for
don't-
general comments. We don't have no action items on that particular.
You can meet with her one-on-one.
Well, I can go now.
You can meet with her
Yeah,
one-on-one.
if you can go now, please. Thank you.
For one-on-one.
Yeah, if you want, we can always talk one-on-one later if you would
Okay.
rather wait and hear what's said this evening. But if you have some comments that are more general nature, why don't you go ahead and do them?
Tina, if you could state your name and address and reminder, we do have 5 minutes.
Sure. My name is Tina Unizai, and I live at 5888 Ketch Street. And I just wanted to, I know that there was a special education review, and I attended that parent meeting with the state, and I had some comments that I shared there, and I know the audit has been completed, so I'm very interested in the results. And my questions really pertain to how the district is going to use those results and put those, anything that was not compliant in place. My other comments about special education that I just want to make to the board, but I probably could have separate conversations about this as well, is that I want to pay particular attention to the child find with that audit, because I don't know that the audit even addresses noncompliance. If your child's never identified, the IEP is not going to show that they were missed in kindergarten when they got on their IEP at 4th grade, say, which was my case. The other comment that I'd like to make is that I really would like to see from the audit anything that really involves teacher training. My experience with the district is that I feel like each year I have to share with the teachers the IEP and what my daughter needs to help address her learning needs in the district. And I feel like this shouldn't be new stuff for a parent to share. The teachers should know this process and should be trained. And I feel like they're not necessarily trained in like co-occurring conditions with a learning disability like anxiety or maybe a mental health issue that might come as a result of the learning situation that they have. So I just want the district to be aware of that, and when they read the audit, can those kinds of changes be enacted as well? So thank you for your time, and I do love the district.
Thank you.
Jennifer Elliott.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Elliott. I live at 623 Sandville Drive. I have 3 sons in the district, all in elementary school. They attend Glen Oak, and they're across the spectrum. I have a child with an intellectual disability, a child who's gifted in a typical average Joe child. So I'm familiar with all parts of the spectrum. And I also want to talk about the Office for Exceptional Children Selective Review. I served for 6 years on SAPEC, the State Advisory Panel for Exceptional Children. So I was able to get a look at special ed across the state for 6 years. And so I know Olentangy in many ways is heads above most districts. And I'm very happy to have my kids here at our building, Glen Oak. They've worked with me every year to meet my son's needs, but I guess that's the part I want to talk about. It's very easy to look at that report and think, oh, it's a couple IEPs didn't have this and a few more didn't have this. But my son is the face of some of those challenges every year. Every year I have to fight to get him just into a regular classroom. And that should not be, that's a basic civil right. I'm sorry, it brings me to tears, but we do this every year. He's going into 5th grade. So I would like you to look at those as a parent might look at that and say, this isn't just a child where they didn't consider how my son's needs could be met in a classroom, because it's not just they didn't check it off on an IEP, they don't even want him in there. And so I am fortunate to be at Glen Oak, where I can have this conversation every year, get him back in the class every year, get the supports he needs, but there are many kids like him across the district. And I know Olentangy in the future will be focusing on results for kids, because that's what the federal government will be focusing on. If the feds are going to start focusing on results for kids in math and reading for all kids with disabilities, then I know the districts will be doing the same. And all research shows that kids learn best, especially with my child's disability, in a regular classroom. So I would like to see the district move to have our kids placed back into the classroom with their peers, so I don't have to fight this every year. Sorry for the emotions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our discussion items. And as Mr. Rafe pointed out, we have several here, and we will begin with the Berkshire Township TIF presentation. So if, gentlemen, if you would please join us.
I'm just going to introduce and let these guys kind of take over here, but you guys have been briefed, gave some information this evening on an approval of a TIF. They're going to explain the project and what it's about, and then we'll answer any questions after that. It's an approval later on in the agenda, or actually right after this. Sure.
Hi, Board. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Joe Simonello, 567 Lozelle Road, Simonello's Incorporated, and we're developing 240 acres. If I can get my assistant.
Yeah.
This was hot off the press.
I'm glad you brought that, because I was trying to look at the one that we had
was too. It's
online.
very
And I was like, yeah, it's very small.
Just picked this up this afternoon,
Yeah.
right before the meeting. So this is 240 acres, just north of 36, 37, and 71. This is the back corner of Bob Evans here and a couple hotels. It stretches up pretty much north along 3Bs and K Road. And the development consists of 38 acres of multifamily, and the balance of it is, well, there's 141 empty nester condos in the orange areas, and then there's about 250 single-family homes. The reason we're before you tonight is the county and the township, on their thoroughfare plan, Four Winds Drive, which enters right near Waffle House at the current time, and across the street at Cracker Barrel and White Castles, they want Four Winds Drive to kind of replace 3Bs and K Road in both the north and south direction, because 3Bs and K Road from the north comes down to 36, 37, and it doesn't line up with 3Bs and K coming from the south, and they're dangerous intersections.
So this is going to be north of 36, 37?
Correct.
Okay, because I drove by looking south.
Right.
Okay, good.
So this is north. The road will,
Yeah.
Four Winds Drive will come out at the traffic light We put that section in years ago. It's 5 lanes to accommodate all the turn movements. And the county, as you can see, there's no homes, there's only 2 access points into the multifamily and the empty nester condos, and then the 2 roundabouts. So it's pretty much put in as a thoroughfare plan, or as a thoroughfare to replace 3 Bs and K, based on their plans. And so we're before you tonight, that improvement in and of itself and some off-site sanitary serves a broader need than just our development. We're gonna pave and put in all our streets. And so we've been working with the township and the county and Superintendent Rafe and Brian to come up and be able to utilize tax increment financing tool. But we're cognizant of also wanting to make sure we make the schools whole or more than whole, because we believe as developers, a strong school district is strong property values and vice versa. If we have strong property values, that will help the school district. One other note on the plan, out of 240 acres, about 114, it'll probably creep up towards 120 is open space. And the way we're designing it, when you're driving along that Four Winds Drive, we're not backing houses up to it, so it'll be aesthetically pleasing. So we had several meetings with Superintendent Rafe and Brian, and we are going to put these properties, all the properties, into community authority. We already have a community authority up in that area with the outlet mall. It's called Berkshire Landings. And there'll be an additional 4 mills charged on the property, on all the property, even the empty nesters, that will go to the school district. And there's also a mill that will go to the fire department. So when we ran the numbers, we're asking for a 1075 tip on the apartments. So we take 75% of the money the schools would have gotten for the first 10 years. But then you are made whole 100% after that. And that amount amounts to about $3,300,000.
You just said that we're made whole after 10 years?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're made whole.
After 10 years on the 1075 tip, you receive 100% on the multifamily.
Plus the 4%?
Plus the four mills.
4 mills from the community authority.
Right, from the get-go. So, bottom line, the 4 mills, after 30 years, adds up to $4,800,000. And the empty nester condos, the taxes that they're paying, because of the layout of the development, we want to look at it as a whole on how it affects the school district. They pay $11 million in taxes, and their share of the NCA charge is about $900,000.
Can you repeat those numbers for us? You said 4.8 million?
Sure. I think I have enough copies.
Yeah. Thank you.
If we flip to the second page. Oh, I have one. Didn't you have one?
And these are broken out by how many units?
Correct. And our development splits 2 townships, Berkshire and Berlin.
Oh.
So these don't add up to the total numbers because there's about 40 empty nester units in Berlin,
Gotcha.
which will get those tax dollars too. And they will be included in the community authority. Those don't show up here as a what's in Berkshire. So if you look what's highlighted on the second page in yellow, over the first 10 years, is that third page? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's 3 page. the TIF dollars that are used out of the 1075 TIF to help pay back the road is $3,391,000. The empty nester condos, which they will be geared towards empty nesters, very few students. They'll generate $11,294,000 over 30 years. And the NCA, the 4 mills, on everything totals up to $4.8 million. So the NCA in and of itself pays back what was taken away over the first 10 years. And then the empty nesters, we'd like to consider that because this, about a third of the residential units are empty nesters.
So, I want to make sure I understand this. So basically, we give out 3.4 million through the TIF, then we get 4.8 million back through the NCA.
Correct.
But over how many years?
Yeah, so the difference is what, just time value of money between the two? basically?
It is time value of money, but also we can't ignore the empty nester component. And we could put back into the calculations the 40 empty nester units that are in Berlin.
So those empty nester units are generating, they're considerably raising the value of the area. We can see there's no students in those, they're not marketing them to students, they'll be low, very low density units. That increased valuation in and of itself is a positive for us.
Right.
But my concern is going back to the ballot to the voters, and they're paying they're paying this additional 4 mills. Are those going to be an additional no votes for our schools?
Well, you have to disclose all that when you sell your units.
Correct.
So there's full disclosure of anybody moving in there. Just like at Gulf Village or in Glen Ross. The difference in this case, in those cases, they were city properties that didn't need approval. So in our case, because it's a township project, we have to, that's why it's before us.
And with that, this community charge here is lower than Gulf Village. Most of the other NCA in the area, I think around 6 or 7 mills.
Are you referring to the infrastructure tax in Gulf Village?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they use that for infrastructure and people, it shows up on your tax bill.
Right.
You
For
pay
30
it.
years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So right now, there's really nothing on this land that's really, generating any tax value. My concern is, the timing of it. I don't want to be losing out on money currently.
What's the assessed value of that area, those 240 acres?
All the assessed value of that property and.
Is it all
and
agriculture?
It's all agri-recoupment right now,
yeah.
and probably in total, it's $3 million assessed as a guess, but it's right around that area.
So it generates very little.
Very little, especially with the agri-recoupment. And the empty nesters in and of themselves, I mean, that generates quite a bit of tax dollars for the school, even without the 4 mills.
Joe,
Yeah.
if I can make a couple points, sorry.
This is Chris Conley.
Hi.
I'm Chris Conley with the Benish Law Firm here in Columbus, and I outside legal counsel for Berkshire Township on TIF matters. A couple points I wanted to make. To be clear, Joe talked about a 1075 TIF. There's actually 2 TIFs on this
Yeah.
site. There's a 1075 on the apartment portion. Apartments are taxed as commercial properties. So that's not, even though it's a residential use for TIF purposes, that's a commercial TIF. And then on the empty nesters and the single family, there is where the township is looking to put in a 30-year 100% TIF, essentially non-school, where the district will be receiving its full millage. So I wanted to make that clear,
Yeah, because
that
that's what-
distinction. What is before the board this evening is a resolution with respect to the 30-year 100% TIF. because that is the one that is going to require the make-whole arrangement, which should be done through a compensation agreement. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear, and also to address something that you said, as far as losing anything that's there right now.
Right.
If this is this CAUV right now, is that what you said, or? Correct. Yeah. So, you know, with CAUV, it's I mean, there's a
Yeah.
market value, but it's taxed at something well
Right.
below that. As soon as this is developed and it's no longer farmed, there's going to be a jump up, there's going to be a recoupment, there's going to be a jump up from the CAUV to the market value. That's not something that'll be subject to the TIF. That jump from CAUV to market is not captured within a TIF. So that market value that the board is currently receiving next to nothing on will
Already
jump up, and
goes
that's
up.
going, yeah. So
Okay.
that's one thing that's going to happen immediately. I wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
that's clear.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, with respect to the 4 mills, when Joe came to the township to ask about a TIF for this project, we understand that residential TIFs can sometimes bring some questions with them to school districts, and hopefully through both the empty nester side and this extra 4 mills, which, you know, Joe showed numbers, I think, through 10 years. I mean, that's going to continue past that 10-year period. So there's going to be extra funds there for the schools that would not normally be there through a regular sort of non-school situation. That was the reason for putting the 4 mills in recognition of the fact that we're asking you to approve a residential TIF. So if there's any other technical questions about the TIF or the compensation, I'd be happy to answer them. Or if you have any general questions about the project that Joe can answer, please just let one of us know.
Chris, real quick, too,
Sure.
and you mentioned tonight is just the non-school TIF on the residential and empty nester. The multifamily 10-year 75% does not have to be approved by this board, so them giving us the 4 mills is a good thing. They don't have to do that normally, so by law, they don't just give us notice essentially for the 10-year 75%. So you talked about there's other residential in the district too. Mark mentioned in the Cheshire area, there's actually 3 separate ones. A lot of that was used to Cheshire Road improvements, but also Glen Parkway extension and stuff was used for some of those improvements. So those you might not even, they was first approved in 2005 and amended in 2011. You probably never saw it on this board because it sits in the city of Delaware. Since the municipality, they don't have to come to the district and ask for approval, but there again, just to reiterate, since it is a township, it has to come before you tonight for your approval. Is that right, Chris?
You did. Thank you.
On the, this community authority, could a future board of that authority unwind the 4 mills? Or how bound is that authority to the 4 mills?
If I'm correct, they don't have access to the TIF dollars if they don't pay to do the 4 million.
There is in the recent draft of the TIF agreement whereby the developer would be reimbursed for the infrastructure costs, which is not something that's been approved by the trustees yet. We need your approval first for the 3,100% TIF. There's language in there that indicates that essentially requires the developer to cooperate with the new community authority board to ensure that property is added in the NCA and the 4 mills is charged. If that's not done, then the developer doesn't get any of the TIF funds. So we figured out that there are some. I originally intended to try to include some of that language in the compensation agreement. There's some legal technicality reasons why we can't do that under the revised code, so that's how we chose to handle that. But yes.
Essentially, because the compensation agreement can only be for what we would actually would have received without the
Yes. And the other reason is the NCA board is not allowed to be a party to a compensation agreement because it doesn't own the property. So.
And what's the build out? How long was
Right,
Yeah.
that was my question. Are we forecasting for this yet?
Kind of on the sheet,
I
it
don't.
goes year by year. Probably about 7. Yeah, year 7 for the multifamily will be built right away.
First, okay.
That will all be built first, and that's in our agreement with the multifamily developer. It should be built 40% within a year and 100%, I think, within 18 months of when we start. And then it looks like the empty nesters about year 7 and year 8, 9 years for the single family to develop over time. And that's represented in the numbers here.
250 units within the next 2 years, probably. Well, it depends on how long it takes you to go through this whole approval process. But,
Yeah, probably online 2018.
yeah.
19.
But I just want to point out, you know, people say here apartments. I don't know if Jeff's here. Is Jeff in here? Yeah. Jeff gave us a really good presentation at one of our school advocacy committee meetings about how really apartments do not bring in the number of students that people assume that they bring in, because apartments do pay property tax. Now, in a commercial way. And so people think that apartment people don't pay property tax. Well, it's the apartment owner who is paying the property tax. So I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, 250 apartment units will bring in the same number of students that 250 homes will, because that has not been the case in the apartments that we have around here. Yes, they could bring in some. How many bedrooms per unit? Are you doing 2 and 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom?
It's a mix of, I believe, 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Even better.
Yeah, better.
It's similar to, what is it, Polaris Grand? That's kind of the setup. And I think they say it produces less than half a student per unit.
Right. Oh, if that, yeah.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
actually
Our current units
profitable.
are-
Yes, yes, as
Have
Mindy
less
said, they're
students than it
actually
costs to educate the ones that
profitable.
are, yeah, they are.
Right,
With the exception of a couple.
right. Yeah, it's when you get up to the 3-bedroom apartments where you tend to have more students in them. So I don't want people to think of this and look at it and say, oh my gosh, 250, that's huge, because our experience has been that's not the case. And
Our
apartment,
current yield, it's about 40 students.
40
Current apartment yield.
Per 250 units?
For a 250 unit apartment, our current apartment yield that Jeff presented,
Yep.
it's about 40 students.
I'm sure that's far less than 250 homes.
oh, absolutely, yeah. Because what's a yield on homes, like 0.7? Well, it depends on the price point. 0.8, okay.
Anything else? Thank you
So
very
it's
much.
200 or kids.
Spread
Yeah,
across 12
200
grades.
kids, right. Total,
Over 10 years.
over 10 years.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Item B, the second reading of our CIP. Mr. Fetty, please.
Good evening. In your support materials, you have a updated draft of the continuous improvement plan. I believe that was provided to you after the board retreat. We made some language changes to the 6th benchmark, I believe. And other than that, I don't think we made any other changes. Did any of the board members have any further discussion on the CIP?
Questions on the benchmarks 5 and 7 predominantly, correct? And 8. Right?
I believe so.
Hang on, I just want to, I'm trying to open.
Chance to look at the.
Yeah, well, I wanted to double check myself on something that got in here.
I did not presentation because I know Mr.
Oh,
Ray
'cause we went
did it
over
full
this.
justice at the retreat.
Well, we were discussing, okay, it's in here. I was just looking at the student-teacher ratio. And it had been set at 16-1. And that doesn't mean you're going to only have 16 kids in a class, because it takes into account all certified teachers. And in order for us to do 16-1, we would not be serving all of our students the best way, because we've added certified instructors at the gifted and in the special needs areas. And we need to continue to do that to make sure that all of our students are being received. So even though we are reducing that 15-1, 15.5 to 1. I feel comfortable in that number because we need to serve our students.
Is the state requirement 16 to 1?
No, that was just ours. This has nothing to do with state
Yeah, there are no
requirements.
state
These are
requirements.
our.
It's all certified adults to students as a ratio.
Yeah. Okay.
So not necessarily adults in a classroom, but so you're taking into account all of your special education
Yeah.
teachers,
Librarians.
your coaches, librarians,
Music.
instructional coaches. I mean, yeah.
Well, and we
Yeah.
talked about different, maybe breaking it out, classroom instruction ratios and special education ratios or gifted ratios are all the different, but we, as you pointed out, it's difficult to benchmark against different districts
Yeah.
and those kind of
It's just
things.
a simple way to do it that's comparable across districts.
Yeah.
When did we raise it to 16 to
It
1,
was
Jack?
3 or 4 years,
4 years ago.
we had it at 15 and a half. I believe 5 years ago it was 15 to 1. It went up to 15 and a half. And then, yeah, I think 3 years ago we raised it to 16 to 1.
Because we were forecasting at about 15.9, 16.
Yeah.
And so we were within striking distance of it.
Right.
And then we made some changes, which I'm fine with 15 and a half.
I mean,
I
it
did
does-
ask Emily to run, just as a, for our own purposes, the number of staff we'd have to cut. Emily, I thought I sent it.
Yes, you did send it to
I
us.
did
It
send it
was
to you, too.
like 32,
36, I think.
36, and then 12, 36 this year, and then 12 each year over the span of our 5-year forecast to get us to 72, I think it was the total.
Yeah, it's in your update.
Okay.
You want to
Oh,
look
yeah,
at it?
got that
No,
right
I'm
there.
fine. As long as you're good.
To get to 16, yeah, you essentially can only add 3 more people in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
There's
That
two ways to
doesn't
look
work.
at it. It's, you're not saying cutting teachers or slowing the pace of growth. Right, you grow your staff slower than you grow your head count.
You're not correct.
Because we're not talking about RIFs or anything like that.
No.
Right. You cut the projected increase in
Right.
staff.
Correct.
Good point.
So we will bring a final draft for approval at the next business meeting, I believe. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, item C, again, the ODE, selective review update.
Yeah, and I'm going to have Marty Arkenbright join me up here as well in case there are any questions and if he has anything to add. So as you know, the Ohio Department of Education's Office of Exceptional Children selected the district this year for an audit, as we call it. They call it a selective review. These are randomly selected in the district. I don't think we ever found record of the last time the district went through this, but we know it hasn't been in 10 years. So we were very welcoming of the opportunity to have, the department come in and help us to identify what we're doing well and what we can be doing better. Before I get into the audit, I want to discuss just the special education identification process, because the identification process of identifying students with disabilities, writing their IEP and serving them and then reevaluating them is the format that the selective review itself followed. It was a very comprehensive audit of all of the elements of special education. So all special education starts with child find, which is the responsibility of a school district to identify students in their district, whether they attend school or not, beginning at age 3. Identify those who have disabilities. And you'll see kind of the components of all of these things as we go on. But basically, one of the things that we've done in the past 2 years is implement response to intervention and universal screening and progress monitoring. You've heard us talk to you before about AIMSweb. This is a valid and reliable screener that helps to identify students once they're in our buildings. 3 times a year, students take assessments to allow us to monitor their progress and identify any struggles that a student might have so that it can drive our interventions and lead to identification when appropriate. Child Find is also the part of the process where you convene an evaluation planning team. The parent, the teachers, and administrator who get together to discuss the needs that a student might have and to select the evaluations that they're going to formally give to a student to help to identify what areas of disability might exist. And then the ETR is basically the findings from that evaluation. So throughout that process, the parents, the teachers, and administrator are all supposed to be working together. I guess I should back up even further that anyone can suspect a disability and mention a suspected disability of a child in the school. It would begin this process. So if a parent or a teacher said, I suspect a disability in a student, this process can begin. The next phase of special education is the delivery of services, and that's kind of highlighted by the IEP, the Individualized Education Program, which is a unique program for each student. The IEP is measured by the present level, it must include the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, what they call the PLOP. That's what it sounds like, but it looks like PLOP. But that was a new one for me in this process. I hadn't learned the PLOP before. But so you have to know exactly how the student is performing, exactly where they're at. So again, going back to RTI and AIMSweb, that's one of the tools that we've put into place that helps us with that. And then the IEP also has to address the measurable annual goals for the student and how progress is going to be monitored to make sure the student's making progress towards the goals. It outlines the specially designed instruction that the student should be receiving. And the IEP also talks about the least restrictive environment, which is the next kind of phase. And this is where you'll hear things like assistive technology come into play, accommodations and modifications, and most simply, students need to be identified in the least restrictive environment, meaning not in a special room down the hall where they never see other students. That's kind of the prototypical old education model of special ed classrooms that are different, where students don't have access to the general population, they don't have access to the regular curriculum, and that their IEP is the only thing that allows them to dictate from that norm. If the IEP team has agreed that something should be different, then something is different. But it's the least restrictive environment is designed to meet the rights of our students. And then the last kind of part of the identification and process is annual review of the IEP and then a triennial review, which is a more comprehensive evaluation. So we're not done talking about these elements, but I just kind of wanted to level set the process of special education.
Is the triennial review when you, every 3 years, the re-evaluation
Yeah, it's the
process?
reevaluation.
Okay.
It's like another ETR, as I believe. The components reviewed, so now getting into the selective review. So each of the components that I identified for you are represented in the review that the state auditors did. So one is child find. And each of you have the report that was given to the district from the Office of Exceptional Children that explains each of these.
No.
I think we already got it.
Yeah, we sent it to you a few weeks
Via
ago.
email.
Mark sent it.
Mark sent it. I'm in it.
We can resend it, though, absolutely.
An old email or new email?
In the new system.
It was in new email. It would have been the end of May when the report was delivered to us.
What's up with the clutter?
May 23rd from Mark.
We can be certain to resend it. But so in that documentation, when you find it, and in the meantime, I know Mrs. Patrick has reviewed it, right?
Very thoroughly.
So there are 9 components of child find that are identified as CF1, CF2 through CF9. And child find, I'm not going to read this language to you, but this is the direct language from federal code that says, or from the state's interpretation of federal code.
Ms. Fiesel, you've read it, we have talked about it. I know you read it because we did talk about it after right away, and so did Mr. Brown. I know you and I've talked about it also.
If it's not in my exhibits.
It's not in
No,
your
it's
board.
not in your
It's-
exhibits.
It was in your regular email, not
Okay.
your board support documents or those kind of things.
Live and learn, though. We'll provide another copy next time.
We do send a lot of
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah. So
not to-
child find
not to
is to
get-
do what I said, to ensure that all children with disabilities who live in the district, regardless of the severity of their disability, and who are in need of special education and related services are identified, located, and evaluated. So from that language, there are 9 different kind of things, for lack of a better word, that districts must do to satisfy child find. So that's one, child find itself is one component, but there are 9 subcomponents that we will address. There were 16 subcomponents of delivery of services. So that's where the plan must ensure that each child with a disability has an IEP that is developed, reviewed, and revised in a meeting. And then there's the legal codes that follows. And then the last component is least restrictive environment, of which there are 6 components, and the IEP alignment, which ensures that to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public schools and other facilities, so even if they're Olentangy children who are placed at other facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled, and that a continuum of alternative placements is available to meet the needs of those children. So in total, 9 subcomponents, 16 and 6, there's a lot of components that are looked at by the team that came to us from the Department of Education. And I'm going to walk through a timeline to explain exactly what they did. They notified us or requested from us in December of 2015, this past December, 32 randomly selected student files, including preschool age students and school age students. They selected the files and then instructed us to take all the documentation for those students and upload them to their portal. And their team got on reviewing all of those documents. So the current IEP, the ETR, any other documents that were related to that student's special education. In January, we mailed out over 2,200 invitations to parents with a OEC approved letter that we had to mail out, inviting all the parents of students with disabilities to a parent forum in February that was held here in this room. Then in February, the OEC team also came to the district for, I believe, 2 days and conducted on-site observations of classrooms, interviews with teachers and administrators, and the parent forum. So they reviewed the documents, and then they talked to people to gather the data to try and glean what they understood to be a good picture of Olentangy special education. In May, just around May 23rd, it sounds like, the findings were presented to us. The whole team from the Office of Exceptional Children came back up here and presented to us what their findings were as a result of their work. And their findings of noncompliance included individual corrections and systemic corrections. And we're going to talk about both of those so that as you read through that document, you have an understanding of what those things mean. But before we do that, we're still not done with this process. Because there were findings of noncompliance, a corrective action plan has to be created by the district. We have to submit that by September of 2016, this coming September. And the corrective action plan has to address all of the systemic findings of noncompliance that were found in the audit. And then it also must correct the individual records that needed correction, that contained errors. So errors could be systemic or individual. We address all of them. So we have to submit a very long plan to the Office of Exceptional Children that says what we're going to do and how we're going to meet all of these goals and eliminate all the errors that occurred. In November of this coming school year, we will have to send all 32 original records back to the Office of Exceptional Children with the expectation that no errors remain. So that same team will take a look at these same 32 records and what they found to be faulty with them in the spring, and our expectation is that they will find no fault with them come November. And their, I guess, their mindset here, obviously we have more than 32 students with disabilities in the district. But the idea is if they did a random sample and they found some errors that occurred in a significant number of documents, and for them significant is 30% or more of the documents, if they had errors in one of those components, that would be a systemic error. And if we can provide in our corrective action plan professional development to all of our staff on how to do it correctly or do it better, and then we know how to correct the errors in those documents, we will then, they would trust, be able to continue that correct action in future IEPs for all students. Again, they get updated, IEPs get updated every year. So by the end of this school year, though they won't be pulling another 32 after the end of this school year, if they did, they wouldn't find any of the errors in any new documents as well. So the audit is based on a random sample, but the impact or the result of the audit should be seen in every IEP in the district within 12 months, much sooner in most cases. And then after we do that, to ensure that we're on that track, in addition to reviewing those 32 samples, the Office of Exceptional Children will randomly select 15 more IEPs outside of those original 32 that were created from the time our corrective action plan was submitted, between that time and December. So in that time, we might generate, 100, 400, who knows? Somebody probably knows. I don't know how many IEPs we generate in that number of months, and they will select 15 from that. So new ones, and expect to find no errors in those 15 new IEPs as well.
And is that to make sure that you've learned from this evaluation?
Yes, exactly. Because all of those IEPs will have been written after we've studied the current findings and we've provided the professional training, professional development for all staff members involved in the process.
So roughly what's the total population of IEPs?
Number of IEPs in the district?
We mailed out originally 2,200 or so.
Yeah.
It's increased
So it's even
since
higher
then.
than that because.
Yeah, I want to say the number we got this week was 23 or 24.
Yes.
100 students. 2,300 students. Roughly.
And the 32 that were they pulled from particular schools, one from every school?
It was a random sample that was pulled from the Office of Exceptional Children, and I believe they used demographic data of the district to try and pull a sample that mimicked the district's greater demographic
So they
data.
decide.
So they did decide. So I don't know if every school was necessarily represented.
Not every school. They also wanted different examples of different disabilities. So they asked for so many samples or examples of students with learning disabilities, so many samples of students with multiple disabilities. So they wanted a wide range of disabilities, which is how they came up with it.
And did they look at high school too?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know there was 6 preschool, but it wasn't broken down any further than that.
Yeah, they did, I think they were specific about 6 preschool and then the rest school age. But I mean, I know from my review of these documents, like one of the students that they have reviewed has graduated. At least 2 of them were documents of students who had very, very recently moved into the district, which would be, representative of our greater demographics. We have move-ins, we have graduates, all of those things. So it seems like they did a pretty good job of selecting those. So I'm going to walk you through a example of one component. So I just, talk to you about the 3 major components and all those subcomponents. I'm going to walk you through one subcomponent and walk you through the language that is included in the findings so that you have a very clear understanding of what they found and how they tell us to correct those findings. I selected this one as randomly as I could. Child find is the first component that is listed in the audit, and I wanted to pick an example that had individual corrections and systemic corrections associated with it. The first 2 did not. Child find component 3 did, so that's the one I chose. But after we do this, you should have a general idea of how it applies anywhere. So child find component 3 is specifically about section B1 of the Code of Federal Regulations 300.501. And this is exactly the code as it's written, parent participation in meetings. So the topic is parents participating in meetings related to the identification process, any of those 4 stages that I mentioned. And it says that parents of a child with a disability must be afforded an opportunity to participate in meetings with respect to identification, evaluation, educational placement, and the provision of FAPE. And FAPE is free and appropriate public education. So from this is how granular the review got. So one section of federal code. So they took this law, and then they looked at all 32 documents to find, in which ways do we meet this law, in which ways do we not meet this law, and they also provide us other considerations, things that there, as anything in life, there still remains to be apparently gray area in special education. It's a constantly litigated area, so they provided other considerations, things we could think about that we might be able to do differently, do better, seemingly things that they learned from their work with other districts as well. There's a number of auditors that look at each of these records and provide us this feedback. So on this CF3, Child Find Component 3, the example is to indicate that this is an example from the audit. This is the full language from the findings, though. I don't want you to interpret that as I've edited any of it. They found that 2 preschool student records did not contain evidence that the evaluation planning team included the parent. All school-age student records contained evidence that the evaluation planning team included the parent. So back to my beginning slides, the evaluation planning team convenes as soon as a disability is suspected, and they meet to discuss, okay, if we think a disability exists, what are the evaluations or assessments that we should give this student to identify what is the disability? So 2 of the preschool records did not contain evidence of parent participation. Sometimes parents don't attend, and the regulations provide means to conduct a meeting without parent participation, but you need to have documentation that attempts were made to include the parent. They also provided other considerations that for the preschool records, these 2 preschool records that they found, the team did not consistently use the correct planning form.
Like the
So,
prior written notice 1? Is that what
I don't
you
believe
mean?
they mean, I don't think that means the PR01. I think that's a planning form that is not mandated. So we have a intended one that as a district we use, and there was one in the file that was not the Olentangy form. So they just pointed that out to us. We're going to help you out here. Individual corrections. So from these findings, they found individual and systemic corrections. The individual corrections, anything found in less than 30% of the records reviewed. The LEA, which is Local Education Agency, which is state language for a school district, the school must provide evidence that the parent was involved or provided the opportunity to participate with 3 documented attempts in the evaluation planning process. The evidence may include the planning form, a prior written notice, a parent invitation, a referral form, or a communication log. If the LEA cannot provide documentation that the parent was involved or provided the opportunity to participate, we must conduct evaluation planning with the parent. So if we didn't exhaust all of our options trying to get the parent to participate, we can't have the meeting without the parent. You have to exhaust all of your options getting the parent to participate, and the parent has to be non-responsive or not want to participate for a reason, or say, just go ahead and do it without me. Doesn't happen much. But here were 2 cases where it did happen. Either the parents weren't involved, or there was not evidence that the parents were involved, or there were only 2 notices, 2 documented attempts, not 3. Any of those things could have been wrong with those records. So then what we have to do is go back and look at those records, fine-tooth comb, and find out where did we go wrong on this component, and then correct that. It could be, any correction is going to require reconvening the IEP team, calling the parent back in. Every parent whose child's record was selected has already been notified by the district that the record was selected for audit, and whether there were or were not findings of noncompliance. We've already had that communication with those parents. And the responses have been across the board from, wow, thanks for staying on top of it. I've always been happy, to, that really upsets me. I want a meeting right now. So, and all of those parents are having meetings. So this is an example of individual corrections. One of the things we learned from this, so other than making the corrections, what are we learning? these two preschool students received their ETR, or their evaluation planning team, in other districts. They were move-ins to us, and when they moved in, we had a completed ETR with the documentation for it, and the documentation did not contain the evidence that parents participated in that process. We moved forward. What we should have done was go back to square one, start over, and have another meeting. Again, it's a good lesson learned, but that's an example of an individual correction. So from the same findings that we reviewed, the systemic findings were that the LEA must submit evidence to the Office of Exceptional Children of written procedures and practices regarding the evaluation planning process. So because 2 of our 6 preschool records didn't, 33%, right? Did not contain a correct planning process, that's a systemic finding. So our required action for that is to take from our special education handbook the written procedures and practices that we already share with our intervention specialists and principals. And first we'll review it and make sure it says everything we want it to say. Mm-hmm. We're going to provide it to the Office of Exceptional Children for them to review and agree that it's all correct. And we're going to provide direct training to all of our intervention specialists to make sure that they're clear on what that language says and what that language means by saying what it says. So again, there were components that had no corrections. Most components had at least individual corrections, if not systemic corrections. But the actions required are all very similar here. The district's responsibility is going mainly from a 30,000-foot level is to correct our policy language, or practices, I should say, in our manuals, make sure training is done for all of the people who are involved in the process, and make sure that when IEPs are written moving forward, that they contain not only everything that we've known to be correct and that was found to be correct, but also these things that we've learned from. So that's part of that corrective action plan. We will be providing staff training at New Teacher Academy for all new intervention specialists and related services. We're doing a train the trainer model for our pupil services supervisors. We have to involve what's called our state support team, which is an organization created by the legislature or somewhere in Ohio, that their job is to help districts to meet the expectations of federal laws, and special education is a federal law. So they will be training our supervisors, who will then be training our staff. We'll also be providing a retraining on ETRs for all of our school psychologists, who are the personnel who actually do the ETRs. We do an annual beginning of year training for all of our pupil services personnel every year, but it will be extended this year. It'll be the training that we knew they were going to need, in addition to the training that we've learned they need as a result of this process. And then we'll also be dedicating our first professional development day in September for the intervention specialists to focus on transition training, which is an element of a intervention, or a IEP, excuse me. So in the next 6 months, we will continue to review all of the documents that were audited. We've already begun asking our questions, getting clarification, planning the training that needs to be done for our staff, and then we want to have a really tight corrective action plan that once the next school year begins, we can hit the ground running, so to speak, in terms of training staff and continuing to work with all of our teachers and administrators to improve our special education process. And we're really looking forward to the opportunity in December to, hopefully, we set goals just like you looked at with the CIP. We like to set goals that we can meet and then meet those goals. And that's my expectation for the Pupil Services Department, is to put this plan into place over the course of the first semester. And our expectation is in December, when we have to give them all those documents again, they look at them one last time, that they don't find any other errors or any
So
additional
what
errors.
if they do find errors after the second go?
You know, that's one of the questions that I've asked them that I intend to continue talking with them that I'm not clear on yet. Because their process does seem to be a cycle of, and here we end. I don't know if you've learned anything about after December?
If that second round of, an audit.
Reviews,
with
yeah.
Review,
Mhm.
15, the goal for districts is to have 100% compliance. So if that does not happen, we have to start over with, additional training, and then they'll have another review after that. So we must be 100% in compliance with that kind of the second review of the 15 documents. If not, then we have to kind of go through that process again.
And it's very, one of the important components I'm learning very quickly is that we have to continue our dialogue with the team at ODE who did this audit. Because just like a referee crew in sports or any other team, they function a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already found multiple instances where they have found one thing and they want, and I'm not trying to say that we didn't do anything wrong, that's not the intent, but as we make these corrections, we want to make the corrections that our team wants us to make, because we've talked to other districts who've had different teams and they were told to do X and we're told to do Y.
So
It's like, well,
there's
just tell us how to make the
consistency, maybe?
well, yeah, and I think it's just like within our district. They're a large organization, and consistency is always going to be, something that we need to really work towards. So,
And I think you find that in any kind of regulatory audit,
Yeah.
whether it's SEC, OCC,
Mhm.
For us in financial services, some of the findings is dependent upon the team that gets assigned to the audit,
right.
but it doesn't invalidate the findings.
Or like an umpire, sometimes it's a strike right there,
Right.
and sometimes it's not.
Wasn't
No.
there,
Mhm.
wasn't there a finding that we got non-compliance for providing too much service?
Yeah, so a couple of the findings had to do with providing services for students where they didn't have an identified disability.
So we gave them the services, but didn't record that they needed them?
Right. Well,
No.
Or maybe they didn't need them?
They didn't have a, through the ETR process, the evaluation didn't identify a disability
That
that
they needed that.
require this service. Through the IEP team meeting, when parents and teachers and administrators are trying to work collaboratively, and somebody, a parent, a teacher suggests the student really would benefit from this
If
and
we do
respond well to
this.
this, and well, we want that written in the IEP. We were found to be non-compliant for things like that as well.
Because we went above and beyond.
Yeah, you could say, yeah.
But what about, I'm sorry, Kevin, what about where we didn't have the proper professional doing the evaluation?
Which,
C7, CF, 7 school age. No, that was progress monitoring. So we had 7 school age in one preschool that did not, their IEPs did not contain specific implications for instruction or progress monitoring. Like, that's a lot bigger. We didn't have the paperwork done.
well, yeah, then that goes back to the paperwork itself, though, as well. And you have to be very specific in writing out exactly what's going to be done. So I think, if I remember correctly, if that's the one where you have to define what the services are to a T. So if it is every other day, let's say the service is provided every other day, and we wrote, this student will receive service every other day, but we did not include a model of what every other day looks like. So parentheses, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, then it doesn't meet the standard of
But if
every
it's
other day.
in minutes, because I know a lot of the speech is in minutes, does that qualify?
Yeah, do you remember the minutes
So
example?
one of the things that our staff and people services doing now is figuring out what those non-compliance issues are, and also understanding how we can change our language in an IEP to make sure that we are in compliant and it's appropriate. So that we are meeting a week from today to start gathering that information. So our supervisors are looking at all of their caseloads that were audited, and then we're coming together to kind of dissect those kinds of issues. So
We start with the supervisors. The supervisors are divided amongst buildings, and they have much more knowledge than somebody like me about each individual student, because they've worked with their intervention specialists and oftentimes sat in meetings on that student. So they're starting going through all the documentation for the kids on their caseload to try and get an understanding at their level of what this means and how this works. Then what we're going to do is, as a team, look at them and see what is consistent and how else can that be, what can we learn from it? What other questions do we need to ask? Because what we're doing all summer, basically, in addition to planning the training, is preparing for each of those IEP meetings to make sure that we know when we go back. Because you can have in your mind what it should say, and then you still have to go back and engage the team, and the team still has to agree on it. And you don't want to come into that meeting and say, well, you have to do it this way because the state says so. You can say, here's what the state suggests, but we still need to get the team to agree on it, to sign off on it. So it is a cumbersome process.
It's very cumbersome.
Yeah.
And when you said that they went to different schools and performed interviews, what schools did they go to? And did they watch?
I don't know, did they go to the schools or did they have the staff come here?
no, they went to the schools.
Okay.
I don't have they didn't go to every building, I do know that, so.
But they determine what buildings they go to, don't
Yes.
they?
Right.
It was part of the buildings that they went to for interviews, and also services, the check on services that were being provided were part of the, obviously, 32 documents that were audited, so.
Okay. Oh, so they checked on those
They checked,
specifically
yes, what
and
they
watched
did.
services be delivered.
Correct.
Are there any other questions related to the selective review?
Are we done with this whole topic, or is there?
That's my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I don't have a question, I have a comment, though. So I myself and Mr. King, we were present for the parent participation portion of the ODE audit. This room was filled and there was standing room, and I don't think that most parents got to speak. And I noticed a couple of things. Number one, there were people that were upset about certain things, but we were clearly not breaking the law. We were working within the law. There were other areas, like child find was a very big one. My own child was a victim of child find. And I still don't understand how the audit addresses that, because if a kid isn't diagnosed, and you keep asking, so I am concerned about those students. But what I thought was, we have several superintendent committees, and I would love to see a superintendent committee follow up on something like this, because we're our second year in on our RTI review. And so I was surprised that they found the issues that they found, because we are working hard to revamp the response to intervention and standardize processes across the district, because there are inconsistencies building by building. And I thought, well, that would be a great way to engage, number one, the pupil service supervisors, intervention specialists, as well as parents. And then parents, we can kind of spread the understanding of the special education world. So some of the, they can voice some issues they're having, and then we can address if that's a legal issue or just details they need to work out within their own school. What do you think, Mr. Race?
What's Fran's?
She's a parent mentor.
Okay.
So she kind of does a role where if a parent feels like they're trying to communicate with the school and they're not making headway.
So she's like the liaison between them?
She's kind of like a mediator.
Well, yeah, it's not always in a negative capacity either.
Right.
Her role is if a parent's entering the IEP process, and Fran's one of 2 parent mentors that we have, that for no charge they can work with somebody who is a parent of a student with a disability who went through the school district, and that person can, Fran in this case, would be able to help them to navigate the
Navigate.
process, understand things that are being said, offer support, advice, anything like that. There are also, it's similar, I would say, to an advocate role, which is a for-hire position that parents can use as well. And they're much more advocating for the parent's perspective and the child in that role. Fran's role is to be as neutral as possible while understanding how the district works, just to try and explain those things. But it's very individual. It's very one-on-one. Mindy's idea of a parent committee, I think, is in line with, I don't want to ruin any surprises for Marty, but I've been working on his work plan for next year. And we've talked about this, the ability of our district to be a better resource for parents of students with disabilities. I think one of the things I've seen this year is just there's a thirst for information and knowledge about these things. With programs, with resources, web-based resources, anything. There's lots of stuff out there. When I try to get the four components of special education, I said I'm not going to go to ODE. I'm just going to Google components of special ed and see what I got. And the first 5 hits are all different, sites that are designed for parents to understand special education. And if you do it, you'll look at them, and some of the things are the same, but some of them are different. Some of them there's 6, some of them there's less. Some of it's really hard to understand. I don't think that's I'm not saying that in jest at all. It is a very complicated process.
With a lot of paperwork.
Right, with a lot of paperwork. And we try to focus on individually. Once your child is identified, we're going to work with you. But as a group, the parents of the 2,400 students with disabilities, we should be sure that we're putting enough information out there to help them to understand and to make sure that they feel empowered as a parent. So, I think a committee could have a role in that. But before we get too far with that, I want Marty to just engage parents in that process, to have some meetings like we do on other topics, and just discuss what is it we need and come to that kind of consensus. Because there are parent groups. You're obviously a member of the Dyslexia Network. There are other parent groups that exist, but for just students with disabilities in general, I think that we can, as a learning organization and an education institution, we can do a good job of educating our parents as we're also trying to educate our staff better. So I think the intent is good. And I support it.
He's being kind of coy about it because he knows he's going to run it. Him and Marty will run it. So.
Well,
but I totally agree with
I'm already on a
Patrick.
committee with Mindy.
I'm more than happy to do anything we can do to do better. It breaks my heart.
Well, and for transparency purposes, like we've got to address this whole audit, and we're being.
Mrs. Elliott, when I hear you say you have to fight for something, fight. I appreciate parents are their kids' first and best advocate. I don't want to fight with anybody about anything. I don't want any of our people. I mean, I don't want to provide services that kids don't need. And it shouldn't be a cost factor. But when a parent comes in and demands that their child has a one-on-one aide, and that one-on-one aide is going to be with them for the next 12 years, I have to consider those. Does that child truly need that service? We have to be prudent in those regards. But I don't want people to feel like they have to fight with us about anything. And I think Marty's been good about that. We have to do a better job of communicating. Every time I've ever sat in an IEP meeting with a parent when I was a principal, and any of our professionals used an acronym, I said, stop. Do you understand that acronym? Ask the parent, because we do it we edu-speak too much, and just talk in plain language. A lot of our parents don't understand that. The RTI process and what we're doing with regards to that and the universal screening, we are 2 years into it. I don't really think that this selective review, because it was looking at isn't going to see the fruits of that labor. Isn't gonna, that's gonna come to play into it. It will as we go down the line. That being said, we have these kids for this particular year. Your child only has one chance at 5th grade, or 6th grade, or whatever the grade might be. I think raising awareness about all these things is critical. I'm dealing with, I had parents in my office just a few days ago, and the child struggles in a lot of areas, and the team is working very hard across the board to provide interventions to help that child be successful, and has suggested that the child might have a disability, and the parents were furious that that suggestion was made. So there is other, it's.
Right.
So what would the role of this group be? Is it like an advisory group? How big?
Well,
Who
no,
gets
I
selected?
think, first of all, I think our district is huge, and to take a new RTI model and spread it out into 25 buildings and make sure that everyone's trained the same, administering the Ames Web the same, all the various, and there's a lot of assessments that they administer. I think it would be a good idea to get a lot of teacher feedback of, like, I'm working through the system, I don't understand this, where do I, and I know that that's the role of the supervised of pupil services, they handles their building, but at the same time, I think that we should be transparent and accountable and give it, have a place where people can come and talk safely about something that is happening in their building or not happening in their building.
And I know we have some communication tools, what to do for all parents. What to do if you suspect your child has a disability. But how often is that communicated? How well is it communicated? How well is it received? Maybe it should be part of curriculum then. So I think that, Marty, hearing what you're saying,
right.
Marty, Jack, and I can review that about those things. What are communication tools? How we're informing people about these services. I think, it's
right. Well, we're doing
conversation.
Ames Web. Do the parents know what the scores are? Like, if you've got some kids that are in that questionable area, do we have a policy that says, all right, well, they're identified low in this area, and we're going to mail this home to the parent and let the parent know? Because how else would the parent know unless, if it's a suspected disability and not a very blatantly obvious one?
Right. Yeah, so we can talk through a communications plan and bring back a report, another.
And remind me to bring that topic up with the digital conversion discussion, because there's an element to that as well. Before I close this, though, I do just want to say to that point, Mindy, you actually and I were in communication with a community member last night, or over the past week, who I called last night, and her first response to me was, I just want to say how easy it was and how surprised I am to get in touch with you and Mindy. That I was very intimidated about contacting a board member and administrator. And you guys replied to me the day of the email. You agreed to have the phone call. And I said, well, that's what we try to do. And to Marty's credit, Marty has been a great leader of special education this year. He has a great temperament. He listens to everybody. He's, I have every confidence in the world of him to lead this process. But for all the parents, I do encourage them, if they have concerns, if they have questions, to reach out and talk to us. Because like Mark said, we don't want anyone to have to fight for anything. We don't want to fight with anyone. We want to fulfill the mission of our district. That's really what it's all about for all of us.
But if we're not, that's a simple measuring stick for me. If we don't have somebody, if we don't find a child, or we don't, and I can say, I know for a fact it's never intentional. I know we're trying to do the best we can with the information we have and make the best decisions on a daily basis. I get to see it firsthand too, because I live with a teacher.
The culture here is changing a lot, and it really has in the last year or so. And maybe now that we have Marty on board, we can contribute that to him and our new leadership. But I think people just have trouble navigating through the waters. They don't know how to, and I tell them, call this person or call that person, but it's hard and it's intimidating. And
no, absolutely, I'm sure.
Anything else? Thanks, Jack. Marty.
I'm still up here.
And you can.
I could have brought you a bottle of water, but I didn't.
Yeah.
That's all right.
And
I just have to take a bathroom break.
To talk about the conversion.
All right. Rob, hey, he's still here. All right, Mr. Sexton will join me for this one. So the district digital conversion is basically our attempt to do these things, to increase personalization, of our learning experience, to give people what they need when they need it. Again, a good crossover with the prior discussion, but for teachers and for students, the ability to have the technology that's available to you to meet your specific needs. Another component is reliable technology. Email that doesn't log off every 20 minutes, internet connection that lasts and is fast enough. Another component is universal access to devices. That is not a one-to-one initiative. That means that if a student needs a device is available to them, either through them bringing it themselves or devices that are available in our schools. High-quality digital content. Again, you're approving Newsella this evening, which is digital content that our curriculum department presented a couple of weeks ago. It does personalization. That's the one that Vince and Anthony talked about, where the same story can be conveyed at different reading levels. This is what we're accomplished by a digital conversion. And it's nothing that we're not going to be a one-to-one district. We're not trying to do only online learning. It's simply using the technology tools that are available to us to continue to meet our mission. And then the last component of it is professional development. But one of those high-quality digital content, one of the points I want to make, Mindy, to the previous conversation is one of the purchases you're making tonight is for a product called Performance Matters, which is a classroom-based assessment system where teachers can give assessments, whether on paper or digitally, and store all the data digitally in a way that's very accessible, that you can read reports over time to see students' progress over time, and that allows us to upload other assessment items like AimsWeb, right, into the...
So all by student ID number? So,
yeah, so
the
much like...
fourth grade teacher can see all the assessments done in third grade like that?
Yes, much like you can get into PowerSchool and see your past grade cards,
right,
that you can see all the assessment data for your student. So all these are the components of our digital conversion. First, I want to talk to you about what we're calling Power Up Olentangy, which was a technology readiness survey is what it began as, that you may have participated in, thank you. But we asked questions to all of our parents through email, sent a survey link. Almost 100% of our households have internet access. One said no. 96% of our students regularly use a mobile device. That could be a phone, an iPad, tablet, laptop. 63% almost of parents would allow students to bring a device from home to school to use on a daily basis. What that tells us is, you hear about districts doing a one-to-one technology initiative. It doesn't make sense. We try to facilitate maximum learning. We also try to be efficient. And a point Rob made to me earlier was personalization. What's more personal than using your own device? So allowing students to bring their devices to school, not requiring it, but allowing them to do it, having the infrastructure in place that allows them to come right in, open up, be connected to our network, and access the digital content that their teacher wants them to access. And then, fun fact, 63% of parents describe the technology-related skills of their students as above average.
Now, regarding that, okay, that's great. They know how to use an iPad and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I have heard the teachers concern, and this goes back to online testing, is keyboarding. Like,
Yeah.
I took typing, so I'm always looking for the F and the J to line my fingers up, But when these kids have to write essays online for online testing, they're doing this. And so that's a real problem because we're not teaching typing, and so their keyboarding skills, that's the word, are lacking. And so I think that's what you're seeing on the online tests. We scored really high on our state report card, but our kids last year took paper and pencil tests versus the kids that were taking the online tests like Worthington. And I think that there's a disconnect there on proper use of technology skill, or the proper way to use something.
Are they teaching keyboarding in the elementary?
I mean, well, they can do that during...
Marin and Nora.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But does she do it correctly?
I would, Not sure.
I mean, I'm, compared to my
Good enough for
daughter,
you.
you know, I mean, I'm a,
Figured out how to text me.
yeah, right. Well, and that's totally different with your thumbs. You know, you're not writing an essay on your online test. So
Well,
that's
so
my concern.
To that point, we have been working to totally revamp our technology curriculum to find out when and how should keyboarding
Yeah,
skills and
I
other
don't know.
technology skills be taught, at what level and to what degree. Along with just, keyboarding, there are other components of technology education. What do we call it? Digital literacy and like online civility, or I can't remember the
Right.
terms. I've been up here a while.
And there's a host of other resources in MyLSD. Typing is one of them. There are several resources in there available. to
Even
students.
saving a document to the correct folder, you know, that you have to upload to your I almost said-
Google
your-
Docs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, oh, it didn't load up right. Yeah.
So a part of the professional development of this is working with the teachers to understand how the curriculum should be changed if need be, and where those things need to be present. Jessica Fields is our instructional technology supervisor, and Brent Roars just joined her. And that'll be a lot of what they're doing in their work to support this. So another element of our conversion is our infrastructure. Most of these things we've been able to accomplish this year. Our bandwidth has increased 4 times, which just allows content to actually, appear to be used. Our firewall has been improved for greater security and access. We're upgrading the Wi-Fi network so that web content can be personalized. So whether it's your device or a school device, when you open it and log in, your stuff appears for you. Uninterruptible power supplies are basically batteries that support the servers in each building to reduce classroom interruptions when there are glitches or surges. And then MyOLSD is our central hub for logging on and accessing all of these resources, trying to, and being very successful, get away from the days of having to remember dozens of passwords and usernames. One login and all of your content is there for you. So Rob's been working on a lot of this summer, getting buildings ready with this. You want to talk about that at all?
Right, yeah. Currently, the bandwidth increased from 500 to 2,000. Currently, we're at 1,500. We have to wait for E-rate purposes. I kind of talked about that in my last presentation. It'll be coming up in July, where we'll be at the full 2,000, but well before the school year starts. The firewall went in the weekend after school let out. That's already in. That gave us the ability to have internet connections from 2 different directions. So if you remember that one Thursday, we had a board meeting, but we didn't have any internet because of a pole getting hit. So, so if that happened, let's hope it doesn't, again, we would still function from our connection to the south. And then the Wi-Fi, we're at upgrading. We're on our finished our 13th building today. Will be done in mid-July with all of them. But the high school's taking the longest just because they're the largest. So we're working through it. And then the batteries, we'll be talking about Chromebooks here in a second with the number of devices. And imagine a classroom with Chromebooks, power goes out, and it usually doesn't stay out too long. But if everything resets, they have to wait for everything to come back. With those batteries there to hold long enough, their laptops or Chromebooks already have batteries in them. Everything will keep working until hopefully the power comes out. Obviously, it stays long enough. Yeah, things go down, but usually they're pretty quick.
The next component is the devices, mostly the Chromebooks that Rob mentioned. We currently own just over 5,000 Chromebooks and plan to purchase close to 2,000 more by 2018. If you asked when is this digital conversion supposed to be complete, 2018 is our kind of target at this point. Well, will remain our target. I think we just got some in this week though, right?
Yes, they were delivered to quite a few buildings. They're sitting in the libraries, ready for school year to start. We're gonna, Just around 500 just arrived, so there are other devices being replaced, but the Chromebook part of that is already complete.
Did we use just Chromebooks for the testing, or did we
Yes.
also use laptop, just Chromebooks?
Because
And
they
it
have to
went
be
well.
secured.
So the ratios we're looking for are 1 device per 3 kids at the elementary level, 1 per 6 at middle school, and 1 device per every 10 students at the high school. That's what we're working towards.
And is that because most high school kids have their own?
Yeah, so you see it tiered like that, 1 for the BYOD. Obviously, parents would trust students more as they are older. Also, 1 more thing to carry. But also the station rotation model, which is really usable at any level, is already a natural fit for the elementary level. So if you have ever been into an elementary class and you see the kids in
Yeah.
groups around the classroom, we feel like they're not going to be bringing their own devices, and we have to have enough devices so that they can have multiple stations going. Not every kid needs to be on one, because one station's always working with the teacher. But when you're on the Chromebook, we need enough in the classroom. Now, Rob is creating building profiles for each school so that we know exactly where each school is. So if you said, where's Wine.Run in terms of the digital conversion, we can tell you how many devices they have, how old they are, whether their battery, their UPS?
Yep, yeah.
UPS is up to speed, all of those things, so that as he also plans for the future and future budgeting, we've always been on a replacement cycle for big machines, for big desktops. And the replacement cycle isn't just about machines now, it's about the whole kind of ecosystem. So Rob's doing that. And also, our PTOs, as Brian points out, most meetings are very generous. We can show them where their school's at. And if they want to exceed these ratios, great. Some schools currently do have more than other schools, not because we bought more for one school than another, but the PTO valued that and put money towards it.
We've over-relied on that.
And we have over-relied on that. I mean, a lot of these 5,000 Chromebooks that we currently own were not purchased by the district. A lot of them were purchased by PTOs and OEF and things like that.
What's the life of a Chromebook? 5 years, 3 years?
Yeah, between 4 or 5 years. There are 200.
So at some point, will we have to
$40 machines.
Buy incremental to replace and grow? I mean, what's that kind of? Are we going to develop a kind of a long-term technology plan for?
Yeah, and it's in the 5-year budget that was accounted for within that.
And in the PI planning as well.
And then what do you do with the old ones? I know at our office, they let us take them because they're like obsolete to the office, but this is taxpayer money that's being used?
Primarily, they go to auction.
Yeah.
If they have any type of
Any value.
left, or they're just recycled if they're not functioning. And we have a whole cycle that we're in the midst right now. So, the old stuff will sit at the dock, where we call it recyclers, and they come in. We just time that up.
But I also want to point out that we are repurposing and reusing a lot of machines too. So if you go to your child's school in the fall and you hear that, that whole lab's gone now, it's not necessarily that we threw everything away. That lab might be at a different building where there's space for a lab, where there's still need for a lab because the building, got a Chromebook cart in place of a lab, or the lab had to become a classroom. A lot of it is kind of shuffling around and making sure we use every device as long as we can. The other element of these devices is laptops are replacing desktops for teachers. I assume all of you have laptops or use laptops in some fashion in your life. Most people do. It allows for greater mobility for the teachers if they're going to go work with a group of students to take theirs with them, since that's where content will be housed. Increases the flexibility, allows them to take things home with them more easily. So we're making that transition as well. The digital resources element of the digital conversion, these are just some of the products that we currently use. You see like Newsella up there that you're purchasing, Gizmos we talked to you about recently, Performance Matters I mentioned before. In the right column, all of the things from the Delaware County Library on are all free things. Some of these have substantial cost, more substantial costs than others. Some of them are very cheap. And a lot of things are free. One of the benefits of a digital conversion is the ability to use things for free. The resources that are out there.
What's my HRW? Is that my
HRW
homework?
is the online side of Houghton Mifflin products. I believe it's Houghton Mifflin, right? Which is a textbook publisher.
Textbooks.
So as textbooks have been transitioning this way for a while, what they've done is they've had a textbook and they've had digital content that's been so-so. Some of it's getting better. So if we have purchased a textbook, or if we do purchase a textbook and it comes with digital stuff, we'll be able to have that accessible to them as well. And you know, the thing itself is free. The content that would be loaded into it would be a part of a textbook purchase. Other benefits are being realized though too. I mean, you're very well aware of our Office 365 transition, but Rob was just reminding me earlier today about the Word, or what do you call it?
Not only do staff get Office, so their personal computers are free, but so does every student. So they can log in and download and install it on their personal computers at no cost, which is a nice little added perk for something that's already free. So it's something we're going to make more aware to parents that they can do it on up to 15 devices. They get 5 laptops or desktops at home, 5 tablets, and then 5 phones. Though I can't imagine typing a document on a phone, but I'm not a 16-year-old kid, so
They can.
yeah, they'll find a way.
But that email switch from first class to 365, remember, was a cost savings, and then here's a benefit of that, so we're not paying for it for everybody. It's just because we're a school, we get access to these things. So as students are becoming more, obviously, digital users, we're helping to enrich their use of these tools. And then lastly, the professional development. We've taken all the 5th grade teachers, I think all of them, through a blended learning teacher cohort process to learn how to use these devices in the classroom. We started at 5th grade because that was kind of, we decided that was a good place to start because you got to start somewhere. And that's going to be building outward, both up and down. So 4th and 6th grade teachers will have that opportunity this year. All of our principals went through a leadership cohort of learning about what it means to be a principal in a school that has, the students bringing devices and using digital content, and the rest of that, OPDA courses. And then lastly, the Ohio Blended Collaborative is us working with other school districts who are doing this as well. So Dublin and Marysville and Upper Arlington and these schools, Rob's department works with those districts to share lessons learned. And in a lot of ways, we're collaborating to create curriculum materials for teachers that we're just going to share with one another. If we create 3 math units and you create 3 English units, we'll swap. Now each have 6, so it's a very comprehensive approach here to the digital conversion. And again, one of my corny catchphrases, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution. The digital change, we're not trying to change the way we're doing education here. We're trying to continuously improve the way we're doing education here. Because that's our mindset as a district, is continuous improvement. And to not use technology would, be a mistake in my assessment. Last slide. Oh, same thing. So these were the components that we covered. Any questions? Okay.
Yes, it is very comprehensive.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I got one more.
Yes,
Oh, He's got
Thank you,
one
Rob.
more.
One more.
See what he gets for going on vacation and
Yeah.
missing a meeting.
This is the key performance indicators presentation.
Yeah.
Roger's presentation is not here for.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
going to make reference to that. If I may, just.
Yeah, please.
That's a good segue there, Kevin. Roger, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, could not be here. The key performance indicators was an important item for him. I just want everybody to be aware that I had reviewed it with Mark and Jack and Brian once before, and then after that, Roger and I both together reviewed it with Brian and Mark and Jack at an agenda meeting. So Roger is very familiar with it. He had some good questions when we were together reviewing the document, and refinements were made, which is what the final copy that went out. So at the risk of speaking for Roger, he's very familiar with it and very comfortable with it.
Thanks, Dave. So our key performance indicators. This is, as Dave said, something that Roger had been mentioning, that the idea of using key performance indicators he felt was something that was important for an organization. And as we talked about it, it made me think of the high reliability schools framework that Mark and I have been using since 2013, which was something created by Dr. Robert Marzano. Any of the educators in the room certainly know who Marzano is. But for your benefit, he is a education research guru. MarzanoResearch.com. He writes a lot of books, a lot of articles. He's very well respected in terms of teaching and learning practice. So for us, when it's a Marzano product, we're going to give it some attention at least. Mark and I heard him talk about this in 2013. And what his framework is a comprehensive look at the things organizations should do to be highly reliable, which is to do the things they say they're going to do. And he bases the framework on all of the things that are within the control of the organization here being the school. So things that are in our control in the left-hand column. Student expectations. What do they expect of themselves? What do we expect of them? Response to intervention, teacher credibility, feedback, all of those things we have something to do with here at the school. There are things that are outside of our control. Prior achievement, what a student knew when they got to you. Preterm birth weight, the home environment, parental involvement. All of those things are outside of our control. So what his research does, he does meta-analysis, which he does a study of many studies, hundreds of studies, and finds the correlations of these factors within our control that correlate to student achievement. So again, speaking our language here. So he defines a highly reliable school district as one that is highly effective in promoting student learning for all students. Our district mission is to facilitate maximum learning for all students. So when Mark and I heard this in 2013, our response was, hey, this is our mission. This is a way to measure our mission. Our CIP and our annual report on academic achievement are ways to measure our success. Here's another way. So we started collecting some data around these things. And the way the high reliability framework works is there's 5 increasing levels of reliability, similar to a hierarchy of needs, starting with a safe and collaborative culture, and then effective teaching in every classroom, then a guaranteed and viable curriculum, standards, referenced reporting or assessments, and then a competency-based education. So there's 5 levels of reliability. When you reach level 5, according to Marzano, you are maximizing student learning. You're facilitating that maximum learning for every student. So we said, all right, let's see how we're doing. So we started collecting data on these things, and I'm going to show you some of where we're at in terms of the framework right now. But within each of those levels, there's key performance indicators, KPIs. And he separates them into leading indicators and lagging indicators. A leading indicator is a perception or an action. So example, when asked, the faculty and staff generally describe the school as safe. So if you surveyed your staff and they said, is your school safe? Would they say yes or no? A lagging indicator is evidence that that's true. Few, if any, incidents occurred when safety was compromised, or few, if any, incidents occur in which rules are not followed. So if you have the leading indicator, everyone says it's safe here, and you have the lagging indicators, the data says it's safe here because there are a few incidents of unsafety, then okay, you've met that indicator. So he's got dozens of these things. So we started tracking this in 2013. For example, you've heard us talk about blueprinting in the curriculum department. Curriculum blueprints come from level 3 of this framework of developing a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So again, back in 2013, when we heard this, when we looked at the blueprints, we said we need to start doing that. So we've been working, our teachers have been working for 3 years now on curriculum blueprinting. So why KPIs? Because they'll help us to monitor and report our success towards implementing or achieving our district mission. So another element of these indicators is they measure both academics and operations. If you know the structure of our district, we have an academics division, we have an operations division. We have kids who are teaching and learning in schools, and we have schools that need to be run efficiently, and students need to be transported to those schools. So the framework addresses our mission statement throughout both divisions, the academics and the operations. So here's an example of a key performance indicator. Evidence is available that adequate proportions of the school budget are focused on issues that directly support teaching and learning. Are you spending your money on teaching and learning? If the core purpose of your school is teaching and learning, your money should be spent to that effect. 85% of our budget is allocated to personnel. We have a very thorough budget review process that the board's well aware of and participates in. We have student ratios that meet or oftentimes exceed state mandates in areas like special education, exceed in the good way. And we budget specifically for both intervention funds and professional development funds. So we're concerned about, we know when a student is struggling and needs intervention, that's going to take additional resources. So we structure our budgets in a way that allows for additional resources to go to those kids. And we have PD funds that help to make sure that our teachers are continuously learning. And as you all know, we still maintain a really good cost per pupil. So we're doing all these things efficiently, but we're being efficient in the right ways. So that's an example of a KPI. So what I'm trying to do here is just demonstrate how the value of looking at one of these indicators, which is tied to research, can help us to assess if we're doing something well or if we're not doing something well. When I looked at this KPI, I would say we're doing that really well. I mean, the data that we have shows that we spend our money wisely, and that we're efficient with it. But there's lots of these things. Some of them we're doing, some of them we're not doing. So it also gives us a plan on what we need to work towards. So an example of level 1 is which is a safe and orderly environment. There's 22 indicators in level 1. An example of one of those indicators is the one I already shared with you, that the faculty and staff perceive the school as safe. So again, back in 2013, our first attempt was, okay, what kind of this data do we already have? We give an annual staff survey. 88% of faculty and staff reported that we provide a safe environment for students and staff. 82% said we provided a caring environment for students and staff. We also, as you know, were just named by Columbus CEO Magazine as one of the top workplaces in Central Ohio. So I feel pretty confident that that key performance indicator, we have data to support that we're making it. We meet that indicator.
Do you also go back and look at how that indicator may have changed?
Yeah. So
the year prior it may have been 95%, but now it's only 88%. So that
yeah. So this data here, for example, is this is still the 2013 data. Okay. So I'm still trying to figure out the way to track the data, because some of it's annual data, some of it's every 2 years, some of it's more frequent, some of it's every 6 months. So tracking it over the long term in a high reliability schools framework is something that I want to develop. I haven't done it yet. But do I have this data long term? Yes. All the data in isolation we do have trends for, if trends do exist.
And really the purpose of this presentation was because, Mr. Bartz had talked about, the notion of having a different way to measure our progress outside of just the academic CIP. What are the other types of things we can do? So we talked about this as a possibility. If the board is inclined to pursue this, we'll develop it further.
Yeah, I had something else I was going to say. I'll think of it. Sorry. All right, so another example. Oh, this is also a tool. This is what it was. This is a tool where we can glean the information that we want to share in our quality profile, which is another document that we're trying to continue to improve upon, to explain, to capture the essence of what Olentangy is. So here's an example from level 2. In level 2, which is an instructional framework that develops and maintains effective instruction in every classroom. There are 13 indicators. One of the indicators is evidence is available that any teacher who is below acceptable levels of pedagogical skill and or growth is adhering to a detailed growth plan. Well, because of OTES and what we've implemented already, every teacher in our district completes a growth plan, a professional growth plan every year, and is kept on file in the principal's office and used in the teacher's evaluation. So whether above growth or below growth, every teacher creates a growth plan each year. Here's one where I would say, yeah, we're meeting, not only are we meeting that indicator, we're exceeding the indicator. Level 3, a guaranteed and viable curriculum. I mentioned blueprinting is in level 3, but I want to give an example of one we're not meeting yet. There's 24 indicators in level 3. One of them is that a written list of essential vocabulary is in place for all levels, being tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, which are levels of difficulty within the classroom. We don't do that. We've never done that in Olentangy. We've never had essential vocabulary. And that's not weekly vocabulary tests. What that means is to identify the actual nouns that students need to know when they're learning a certain content standard, to understand at its core what the standard's all about. Not just memorizing facts, but understanding all the elements of that. Something we've never done before. It's something we can do. Shouldn't take very long. Marzano wrote a book about it. But there's a lot of research that lists essential vocabulary to academic achievement. I would venture a guess that our students as a whole have a better vocabulary than the majority of districts in the country. So this might benefit us less than it would benefit other districts, but we should still do it because it says it's how you get to become level 3, one of the ways, and because if our mission, again, is to facilitate maximum learning for every student, and we have a highly transient population, there are still students who would benefit from this. So something we should do and will do. Level 4, standards reference student reporting or student progress reporting. This goes back to Performance Matters, which is on the agenda tonight, and that I talked about, the software that we're proposing to purchase, which is report cards and other reporting that displays student status and growth on essential elements and individual learning goals, tying in even to the digital conversion presentation with personalization. We want students and parents to know exactly where the student stands against the standards in real time based on accurate assessments. I would say that this is in progress because we do use standards-based report cards at the elementary level. We're developing these performance level descriptors for those report cards and for use at elementary. But we don't have those things at the high school because it's not practical. Standards-based reporting at the high school is Mark and I have talked about this a lot. We'd love to have it. We just don't see how it works. Because you still got to give a kid a GPA. To get a GPA, you need to get a letter grade. It's all about college, right? So through Performance Matters, we can still meet this indicator by having the reporting for every student available based on the classroom data. So that one's in progress. Level 5, a competency-based system that ensures mastery of content, 8 indicators. Here's the example. The schedule is designed to accommodate students moving at a pace appropriate to their background and needs. So in education, there's the factory model of education, that 200-year-old model that a year in kindergarten leads you to a year in first grade, a year in second grade. Acceleration is necessary at times. Retention is necessary at times. Reteaching is necessary at times. We have intervention and enrichment time that we've implemented in the past few years in our elementary levels. We have academic lab at the high school and double block classes at the high school. We've implemented response to intervention, which is all about making sure students get the specially designed instruction to get back on track. But these things are not universal in all content areas and grade levels at this point. So this would be one that becomes a goal that we're working towards and that we want to accomplish. At this point, the blue indicates where we were in 2013. Each level, the gray indicates the total indicators for that level, and the yellow is the progress we've made towards completing a level since 2013. We haven't even completed level 1 yet, you'll see. It's been a little scattershot. because we were using it as a guiding tool, we weren't using it as the guiding tool. Now that we've taken kind of this approach and talked about how it would help us to long-term plan, to meet the needs, to fulfill the mission of the district, obviously our goal is going to be to fill up level 1, work on level 2, and so on and so forth, till we achieve that kind of high reliability standing. Come on, ask some questions.
So, the Marzano firm,
Yeah.
so would you then bounce your results against Marzano's database, which is across the country?
That's a good question. So I think he's still developing. This was brand new research in 2013. I think we got, the white paper. He started having some conferences and trying to collect data from other schools. I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know how possible it is that they get this data from other districts. I would hope that once we have a couple levels, I would plan on engaging them in it.
That would be his business model, right? You adopt his framework, he collects the data, then he charges you access to the data.
Perhaps, yeah. We haven't looked at that yet. I'm sure one of the things my assumption was that, he'll certify you as a level 5 school, and that'll probably cost money. I don't know that, for me, it's not about that. It's about our mission. And
I mean, the benchmark I think would be good, so you can put the scores in context, right? And make sure you're compared against like districts with similar demographics, etc.
Right.
So I like the idea of the KPIs, but then you got to benchmark them against something, either historical trends, expected trends, or peer groups, right?
Yeah.
And the state does that with the similar district groupings with their
Yeah.
measures, but, we all know those are minimal for us, just meeting the state line. And we've always tried to go above and beyond that with our CIP. And we like from an education standpoint, we like the language of, because it's what we should be doing, the type of work we should be doing. But I totally agree, we have to be able to benchmark ourselves against other districts.
I like to benchmark it even to the point that, depending on how in-depth he gets and nationally oriented, but to the districts that U.S. News and World Report, those rankings, how we compare to some of those upper echelon districts where we are.
And maybe it's just something that, that if we're starting doing it and other people realize we're doing it and reporting on it, they may follow along that. We'll see.
And, if you look at just those blue bars there, that's what we had data on in 2013. That was the stuff that we were already doing before we even knew that the framework existed. And some of those things are higher level. Surveying of staff, things like that aren't done everywhere. In the districts I've been in, I don't know that we'd be anywhere near to even that complete towards our progress here. So what it said to me, knowing that Olentangy was something special and that we do things, well here a lot of the time, it validated the framework for me as, here we are, working our way towards level 3 without even knowing that we were working towards level 3. And knowing that if I applied it to other districts, they wouldn't be that far along. I saw a correlation between the framework and, the actual results that we see here.
It seemed like a lot of KPIs, like when you add up all the levels.
Oh my gosh, yes, there's 22 here. And
Who would manage all this data?
Yeah.
That looks like a big job.
Oh, I know.
Impressive, like we could use it to market our brand, it's the evidence behind our.
That's why I haven't done what Kevin asked already. It's hard to do this stuff, man. I still got the 2013 data up here.
So did you do?
Yeah. We've been collecting it, like I said. And, we created a Google document, shared it with all the curriculum department, because it's something that as I was curriculum director, we conferred about. And they all had, this isn't just me at all. Other people have been adding to it and using it to create our kind of our academic CIP that we create each year has been driven from this.
So you start at 63 up here, but then now you want to start how's it look at the high school level? Now it'll be 63 times 4.
Yeah.
Right. Then how you look at the middle schools? Now it's 60.
So one of the things is once
level.
we put everything in place, we'll be able to do this analysis at the building level. But we first have to have all once we have the staff survey, We can just take out Liberty High School and here's
Right.
Liberty's data and compare it, but we have to first make sure that all the things are in place as a district.
It's a nice framework. I like the
Mm-hmm.
framework.
Would
Yeah,
it help
nice.
identify how some buildings have higher performance? Like, would
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's exactly what,
Identify what they're doing that's
Yeah.
so special.
all right,
Okay.
I'm gonna go get a
Jack's
drink of
Betty
water.
Marathon has come to an end. Thank God.
I heard that.
He didn't have the beard when he started this meeting.
Because binge watching Netflix or
And
something.
Mr. Gordon,
Watching Netflix. Jack, did you hear that one? Sorry.
about the House Bill 264 process, please.
Yes, I thought Jack was just filibustering to keep me off here.
Let's see how committed Ron is.
What I just passed around there is the same district totals breakdown we had last week. And then I added to that, there was a question about what would happen if we took out the mechanicals on the project. And you see the difference does not change significantly. It actually impacts the project less than,
Yep.
in less than a year, either way, on how we do that. And I did check with council as well on a couple other questions that had come up. And one is we cannot start the financing aspect of it until we have approval from the state, according to our legal counsel. And the other item that I did check with them on as well is if we are willing to go forward and finance the controls and the lighting portion of it, we can still include the mechanicals in it if we would choose to pay for that out of the rebates or out of PI in the future. So that's discussions we can have once we get state approval back, should we move forward, and then we can discuss which parts that we finance or how we pay for that. So the rebates were over $900,000, whereas the mechanical portion of it was just over $500,000. So as those rebates start coming in, and the rebates you apply
Yeah.
as you do a building and install, so they would come in over the 2 to 3 year period of the
Okay.
project. So as we got those in, we tracked those, we could also look at replacing mechanicals over that same time period as those came in. So, with that, were there any other questions on the project?
I just want to thank you for responding to the email I sent you. Those were good responses to those questions, and I would hope that for the others, that provided some good expansion of what it's all about. So
Okay,
thank you
great.
for
You're welcome.
that response.
So I guess process-wise, let's say we would move forward tonight, at what point would we get into a funding discussion? And when would we have that decision around,
Yeah.
do we stick with the program and fund it through the program, or do we pull out because we think we can fund it cheaper on our own?
Well, we still have to wait from the state to see if we
Yeah,
get
which-
approved.
Which,
So we're kind of on
But so I think you still get it approved, but is that a point of no return? Like, you can't pull out and say, you know what?
Oh, because they approve everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, the funding we would do on our own. The state gives us permission to fund, but we would go out and seek the funding on our own. The state does not provide the loan for the funds.
So we'd be out issuing our own bonds?
we can do it various ways. The state does have, and I found out today talking with our bond counsel, we do have, there's an energy loan program through Department of Administrative Services. While I looked into it, they had some requirements for last year. It wouldn't fund, I don't know if you can do like mix and match. Let's say they could do a portion of it. They also mentioned there's now like an air quality development authority that a school district up in the Cleveland area is using. I don't know, whatever it would go, we'll continue to look all of this while they're getting the state approval, state's reviewing the project. We'll look into how we're going to exactly best finance this program. Now, to actually apply for those loan programs, we'd have to probably wait till the state approval goes through. But most likely at that level, we're not going to do the ratings trip and all this stuff. We'll probably look into like a private placement situation where, hey, what bank wants to take this?
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have an unrelated question for Jeff, though. It's about, is School Dude, is that for maintenance on buildings? Because it's on our Office 360, but what is School Dude?
That is actually our new facility scheduling program that we're using. Our facilities scheduling formerly was done in first class, which we've now gone away from. In addition, the
community wanting to use our buildings had to do a paper or go to the building, submit a paper application, process it there, send it through district mail over to our office and process it that way. So School Dude gives us the ability to have our community also apply online for facility use. But it does expand. It has many modules, one of which is work orders, work systems, those things as well, if we decide to go there. We have been with our same work system for a number of years, but we haven't, we're just getting the facility scheduling up and running right now.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, that concludes our discussion items. I would just like to point out, that was a lot of conversation, a lot of information, and it took some time, and that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. I would just like our community to appreciate, as we looked at all 6 of those items, just how interrelated they are, how sophisticated, how complex this district is, how comprehensive all this information is. There's not a single item on that list of 6 that we discussed this evening that's independent of the other 5. And I just think I'd like to stress that for people to understand just what goes into an excellent school district and what they do. So very excellent performance by all those members of our district. So with that, do we have any public participation items for action items?
We do not.
Okay. With that, we'll present our action items, and the first one is number 12 on your agenda, the board action items, which is the resolution regarding the Berkshire Township request. So do we have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And any further discussion from the original presentation? Hearing none, if you call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so board action item A, the single item, passes 4-0. And if you would please present the treasurer action items.
I'd like to present treasurer action items A through D. Approve the financials for May. Amend appropriations for FY16. Approve permanent FY17 appropriations. And approve the donations to the district.
Yeah, motion, please.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so the treasurer action items pass 4-0. And Mr. Wright, please, superintendent action items.
Yes, I'd like to present superintendent action items A through I. Just want to make note on A1, which is our 40 more teachers that are being hired. I believe 10 are Olentangy grads, district grads.
Oh,
Really?
I recognize a lot of those.
Yeah, a lot of the district grads, so.
Yes, makes me feel old.
Yeah, it's great. Now that there's Orange kids well in the mix, Liberty kids, and Olentangy, former Olentangy students, so just think it's interesting to note that.
Thank you. So we have a motion, please, to accept.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Kern, please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so the superintendent action items pass also 4-0. We have one more action item, that's our chief operation officer action item, so if you would.
I finally get to the podium.
Yeah.
Like to present action item A, approve the supplemental employment for Catherine Rafe as assistant cross-country coach at Berkshire Middle School.
Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
And any discussion?
She's been doing this for years, by the way,
Yeah.
before.
She's doing the running club at Freedom Trail.
Yeah. She's a runner.
She did get demoted from head coach to
I
assistant.
saw
She
that,
got
yeah.
bumped up.
She's trying to downsize.
So hearing no further discussion.
So wait, did Mr. Meyer have to sit here this whole night through this long meeting because your wife's, because you
Yes.
couldn't be on your action item?
Right.
I'm not allowed to.
We owe this man dinner or something, yeah.
He's coming to executive session.
Oh.
That's right, he's not done yet. So that was healthy discussion there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so the Chief Operation Officer action item passes also 4-0. With that, if we could have a motion, please, to go into executive session. To enter an executive session is permitted by the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment of public employees. Do we have a motion?
Actually, there's an addendum,
I'm sorry.
Mr. King.
I didn't turn the page. Let me please reread that. To go into executive session for the Ohio Revised Code to consider negotiations with representatives of public employees. Have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And any discussion for executive session purpose? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes, so executive session passes 4-0. There'll be no further business of the board after the executive session, except to come into this room to adjourn the meeting. So thank you for being here.